Hey guys, Britt here. Welcome to End Times Bible Prophecy. Make sure to hit the subscribe, like, and share buttons. Well, I want to do a series here. This is going to be a multi-part series titled, It's Coming Faster Than You Think. And what is the it? Well, I'm talking primarily about technology and a lot of these technological developments that we've been seeing and are soon going to see, because I've run across a lot of people recently who have said things like, well, central bank digital currencies a few years ago, I thought this was way far off in the future. The logistics were just too complicated. Now they're starting to roll some of this out, and still other people say, oh, it's way into the future. We talked in the last episode about swarm technology and its dominance of the future battlefield. And some people might say, well, that's way off in the future. Nuclear weapons are here to stay. They won't be made obsolete, or they won't be made obsolete anytime soon. Or global government is still so far away. It's decades in the future. How are they going to do this anytime soon? How are you going to conquer the earth, control the earth? All of these different things that we read about in Bible prophecy, there are a lot of people who would say, well, logistically, that's so far in the future that we can't be near that time. And I beg to differ, because I think that all of this is coming much faster than many people think. Even people who are attuned to Bible prophecy and the signs of the times, I think, fail to recognize how close we are to seeing a lot of these things come about. Why is that? Well, I believe primarily the reason that is because our minds tend to think in a linear fashion, meaning, well, yesterday was a certain way, and tomorrow will be just like yesterday was. Or the last decade saw a certain amount of progress, we'll see a similar amount of progress in the decade ahead, or the last century and the century ahead. That's typically the way we think. We think in increments, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We don't think exponentially. We don't think in terms of things doubling and going from 2, 4, 8, 16, 32 in a very rapid pace. And so I want to hopefully help illustrate this concept, visualize this concept today, because I think it is extremely important to be able to grasp this concept to understand what lies in the days ahead. So to start out with, I want to take a look at this book right here. It's called Signs of the Second Coming. I wrote this book. I'm the author of this book. If you want to find it, it's available pretty much anywhere books are sold. But I want to take a look at an excerpt from chapter 3 here that talks about this concept. It says, this phenomenon of human technological progress closely resembles the exponential curve of birth pains. So where have we heard of birth pains related to the times in which we might live before? Well, Jesus said, when asked about the signs of his coming and his return, this would be the second coming at the end of the tribulation period. He said the days before that would be characterized by birth pains, labor pains, meaning that certain events would increase in frequency and intensity in the time leading up to the main event. When you're having labor pains, that main event is the birth of a baby. In this case, we're talking about the second coming of Jesus Christ. So the times before that would resemble what we would think of as an exponential curve, meaning if you plot events that occur with greater frequency and intensity on a chart, you're going to end up with an exponential curve. That's what this is talking about. So it says both the power and the pace of our technological advancement have progressed and will continue to progress at an exponential rate. As they do, the turmoil of this world will also increase exponentially. Unfortunately, most people are completely unaware of this exponential curve. Why? Because they're standing on it. If you stand on any one point on an exponential curve, the points on either side of you look like incremental steps. That's what we were just talking about. Tomorrow is going to look a lot like yesterday did, right? You're standing in that point. It's hard to see the forest through the trees. It's only when you step back and look at the whole picture that the true nature of growth is apparent. So let's take a look at what an exponential curve actually looks like. So here is a simple illustration. We have here the amount of time that's going by on this axis, and then up here is the amount of increase we see, and we see the slow, almost flat line. The change at first is not even noticeable, and then it becomes more and more dramatic until eventually, if this kept going, it would eventually go vertical. And so that's the type of thing we're witnessing right now. And the reason it's so hard for people to understand that, so if you're standing on any one particular point in this curve, let's say this is a century of change or 1,000 years of change. If you're standing in any one part, your life might only encompass a small piece of that, and you don't really recognize how incredible the change is. But again, think of the changes that we've seen in our lifetime. Think of the changes since your grandparents and great-grandparents were around. The technological advancement that they've seen has been absolutely exponential in nature. So let's go on and read a little bit more from this chapter. It says, likewise, most people expect the next 10 years to be a lot like the last 10 years, and they expect the next century to be a lot like the last century. Those people make a serious miscalculation. They fail to grasp the exponential nature of population and technology growth, even though both are clearly observable. This is why so many people can say, things are the same as they've always been, and keep a straight face. And where have we heard that? Things are the same as they've always been. I've heard this numerous times from people when talking about the times in which we live. Oh, Jesus isn't coming back anytime soon, they might say. Things are the same as they've always been. People have been saying this for hundreds of years. It hasn't happened yet. Things are the same as they've always been. Therefore, it won't happen anymore. Well, that's right out of the Bible. If we go to 2 Peter chapter 3, verses 3 through 4, he says, most importantly, I want to remind you that in the last days, scoffers will come, mocking the truth and following their own desires. They will say, what happened to the promise that Jesus is coming again from before the times of our ancestors? Everything has remained the same since the world was first created. Guys, I've heard this argument myself in actual Bible studies before. I've brought that up. A lot of people believe this. They think, people have been saying that for a long time. It hasn't happened yet, therefore it won't happen, which is its own logical error. But they fail to grasp the significance of the times in which we live, because a lot of the amazing changes that we've seen in the world took place before any of us were ever born. So we don't have the perspective to look at how, for thousands of years of human history, things were pretty much essentially the same. And then all of a sudden, everything changed. Think about travel across land. From Adam and Eve until about 200, 250 years ago, the fastest anyone could travel on land was by horseback. That remained unchanged for thousands of years. Then all of a sudden, locomotives came along, and then all sorts of other modes of travel. And people move much, much faster than horses. Ever since, it's been an exponential curve to now where we have airplanes that can go several times faster than the speed of sound. I mean, that was inconceivable just 100 years ago. But now, we don't even think twice about it, because we're standing on that exponential curve and we don't pay attention to just how amazing and significant that is. Need another illustration? Think about manned flight itself, controlled manned flight. In 1903, the Wright brothers had what was the first recorded manned-controlled flight in history. They flew, I think it's about a little over 800 feet, probably about 30 feet off the ground, for less than a minute, maybe 59 seconds, something like that. Yet, 66 years later, in 1969, men landed on the moon. So there's some exponential change for you from some guys constructing a glider in their garage and going to the beach where you had heavy winds, and hey, they kept it airborne for a few football fields, and less than a minute, that's great, to, hey, let's build rockets and go to the moon. And then you look at the technology that enabled men to land on the moon. You have more powerful technology than that today, and the mobile phone that's probably in your pocket right now. So we are witnessing, we have witnessed, and we are continuing to witness exponential change. So in case you're having trouble visualizing this concept, I want to pull up a video and look at this video because I think it will really help you visualize the power of exponential change. And I had to actually recorded this previously, and for some reason it didn't pick up the audio clip of the video. I think I figured that out, so you might have seen a little bump coming into this part of the video. That's because I've had to re-record this and insert it back in. Hopefully it works this time, and that's a sign that the enemy does not want you to hear this because of how important it is. But we're going to look at this video right here. This is from Hidden Secrets of Money, Episode 10 with Mike Maloney. I've recommended this series in the past. In this episode, he is interviewing Chris Martenson of Peak Prosperity. Now, to my knowledge, neither one of these men are Bible-believing Christians. I have no idea. But I recommend their sites as good avenues, good places to gather information on finance, on what's going on in the world around us, because they both pay attention to the news and give good information. And this is a prime example here where they illustrate and help visualize this concept of exponential change. And I think it will help you understand how limited our minds are when it comes to this concept. So I'm going to try to mute my microphone and avoid feedback, and hopefully you'll be able to hear what they're saying on the video. I'll try it again.
Do you have a park, like a favorite park that you wouldn't mind see getting ruined?
How about, I think they're going to decommission Candlestick Park
Candlestick
at San Francisco.
Perfect.
area.
All right,
Yeah.
let's use that as an example. So here's the thought experiment. Imagine I have a magic eyedropper, and it's magic because the drop of water that comes out of this eyedropper will double every minute. So after 1
So keep in mind what he's saying here. We have Candlestick Park, this large baseball field, baseball stadium, and he's standing in the middle of that stadium, and he's got a magic eyedropper. It's going to drop one single drop of water, and then each minute it will double. So after 1 minute, you'll have 2 drops of water. After 3 minutes, you'll have 4 drops of water, and so on. And he's asking the question, how long until this stadium fills completely with water? So think about that before I hit play again. Maybe leave your comments below, and then you can check your answer when you see what he has to say after this. So this goes on.
minute, you get 2 drops. And after 2 minutes, you get 4 drops. And after 6 minutes, you can fill the thimble up, right? All right, so let's do 2 things. We're going to make this part watertight. And I'm going to handcuff you to the highest row of bleacher seats. And let's start this tomorrow, 12 o'clock. You're handcuffed up in this highest row of bleacher seats, and I go down right into the center of the field, and I put one of these magic drops down. Now, here's the question. How long do you have to escape from your handcuffs, knowing that this park is going to fill up with water?
Okay, 1 drop, and it's got to fill the entire park. How about a day?
So Mike Maloney is saying he thinks it would take about a day. Again, what do you think? But let's find out the answer.
A day. Good, that's close. What if I told you the answer is 50 minutes?
Wow.
You can think 51 minutes, if you want to get rid of the skepticism, right? Mm-hmm. So that's amazing, right? Just 50 or 51 minutes, and it's all over. The whole park is full. That's not the important question.
So think about that for a minute. 50 minutes to fill that entire stadium with water. That is the power of exponential change. We tend to think in a linear fashion of one eye drop, single drop of water, another single drop of water, another single drop. Well, adding one at a time in those one drop of water increments would take a really long time to fill that stadium with water. But when you're doubling the number of drops every minute, it only takes 50 minutes. That's the power of exponential change. But he goes on because he says, that's not the important question, how long it takes. a much more important question and a much more important visualization of exponential change and the chaos that it can bring to, especially to people's expectations and our lack of ability to grasp that. We can see that in this next demonstration. So let's try that.
Here's the important question. At what time is this park still 97% empty space? It's not filled with water. And do you realize the seriousness of your predicament?
Well, I know it would be half full 1 minute before my
Good.
predicament. So, I don't know, 10 minutes?
It's 5 minutes.
5 minutes, okay.
So if we go back just 5 minutes in time, there's a little bit of water in the infield. And then 5 more minutes.
So think about that, guys. 5 minutes. It just takes that last 5 minutes is when most of the stadium is being filled with water. Up until that point, your average observer would think, well, I still have plenty of time. They have no idea. They can't grasp the concept that there's only 5 minutes left until they're underwater, and they don't realize, as he says, the seriousness of their predicament. So let's watch a little bit more.
It's over. And so when I look at this, I look across the world and I think, okay, from all of human history until 1960 to put the first 3 billion people on the planet, and then just 40 years to put the next 3 billion people on the planet. And this is important because the Earth is our stadium, and we're living through one of the most extraordinary periods of human history.
So guys, that says it all right there. So this power of exponential change, people do not grasp this. We were not pre-programmed by God to think in an exponential fashion. We think in a linear fashion. We think of these small increments. Our mind just cannot grasp how quickly all of these things can come about. And so we've talked before about, from the Wright brothers to men on the moon in just 66 years. Things can change much quicker. They can happen much faster than most people think. And I would submit that the world, metaphorically, the stadium is about to be filled with water, and most people are completely unaware. They're going to be caught by surprise because that last 5 minutes is when all the change happens. Think about retirement plans. If you've done any sort of retirement planning, and people, they'll say, well, invest X amount of cash each year, and at the end of that time period, you will have this amount. But you look at the growth in that retirement account, and the overwhelming majority of it happens in the last few years. Early on, it looks like you're not making any progress at all. Then, wham, it just all comes at once. Because that's exponential change. And this is exponential change. This is what we're seeing in the world today. So when we talk about, well, how far off are central bank digital currencies? How far off are some of these technologies they're talking about, like Elon Musk and the brain chips, and Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates doing the same thing with their firm? Oh, people aren't going to have brain chips for decades or centuries. Unfortunately, that's not the case, because the power of these technologies is changing exponentially. These will be adopted much faster. So we'll talk about this more in depth in the episodes that follow, but I just wanted you to see this video and be able to visualize the power of exponential change. So if you want to watch that complete video, and I highly recommend it, I will leave it in the description and pin it to the top of the comments below. So make sure to check that out. So guys, I just want to start off with this first part one, trying to help you visualize and understand the difference between linear change and exponential change, and how we live in a world right now that is governed by exponential change, and what that means in the months and years ahead. In the second part of this, I'm going to talk about artificial intelligence and this concept of the singularity that you hear a lot of people talking about, some people advocating for, some people looking forward to with what would be described as a religious fervor. They are This is the event that they are focused on and they are waiting for. I believe the real event that's coming is the second coming of Jesus Christ, and we won't reach that singularity before we get to it. It will actually lead to Jesus Christ. That's what these birth pains that we're seeing in the world and that we will see increase in the days, months, weeks, years ahead are pointing to the second coming of Jesus Christ. So I'm going to talk about in the next video artificial intelligence. Then we're going to go on and talk about central bank digital currencies and molecular manufacturing and follow-up videos to that. But all of those things are a lot closer than many people think. Even people who are knowledgeable of those subjects focused on them, because it's hard for our minds to grasp exponential change when we think. We're pre-programmed by God to think in a linear fashion. And so this catches us by surprise when we see this type of change. And it's exactly what we're seeing in our world today. So let me know what you think. Leave your comments below. Make sure to like and share this, and we'll do that part 2 video this coming Wednesday. So God willing, I'll see you then. In the meantime, again, leave your comments. Make sure to like and share this, and I will see you on Wednesday. Bye. If you want to learn more about the end times and Bible prophecy, make sure to sign up for my free monthly newsletter and get your copy of my free ebook, 7 Signs of the End Times. Just follow the link in the description to get your free book. Also, make sure to check out all of my books. Just look up Britt on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Apple iBooks, Google Books, Kobo, or anywhere books are sold. Thanks for watching today, and until next time, keep your eyes fixed on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith.